I also thank you, Maria Giulia, and the University of Liège, and the FACETS project, and Massimo. My question is, what can I say more of what has been already said by my two friends and colleagues, Massimo and Maria Giulia? So maybe I would say the idea that this Congress wants somehow to start a new way of thinking and working on these topics, and wants to do it not only in an open, interdisciplinary way without, as Massimo used to say, any division of school, chapels, or types of semiotics, but I would add, maybe more importantly, for at least for my sensibility, wants to do it with young scholars. So this is my point. So I think that renovation always passes through our younger colleagues and scholars. And the number of and the quality, I think, of these younger scholars is, in my opinion, the real thing we should be proud of in the program that we have built up together with Maria Giulia and Massimo, because it is mainly up to them, if I can, to carry the torch of the truth, as a guy who has been important for semiotics used to say in centuries ago. So I want to add to all the things Maria Giulia and Massimo said about us, a small remark on our pupils, in some way, on our students, on the ones we share together. Enzo D'Armenio, for instance, with Maria Giulia, and Gianmarco Giuliana with Massimo, both are going to give a talk during these days. And all the younger scholars from Bologna, ULiège, and Torino that are here, from Louvain to Martina, from Bruno and Cristina to Luigi. And I'm sure that after these 3 days, these surnames will also gain a real name in some way, thanks to the beautiful ideas that they will present here during these 3 days. So I would say the digital images, their changing size and format, definition and context, teach us and make visible to us a property that is somehow constitutive of ideas. That they exist only as re-enunciated in an assemblage between us and the others, in which the discernibility of terms in relationship disappears. And so on. And it's like that with younger scholars and pupils in some way. They take your ideas and link to them, pushing them far away while showing you details that you couldn't see without them, which is a good image of the power of digital, as Massimo has just described it to us in some way. So in this conference, I tried to bring the point of view of a cognitive semiotics, a word that still annoys many, especially in Italy maybe, but in reality, it shouldn't at all, because cognitive semiotics is simply, for Umberto Eco, not for myself, the semiotics is that asks the question, how do we know the world? This is a quotation by Umberto. I think that the theme I have addressed in an almost obsessive way through all my work is that of how we come to know the world. Perhaps this explains the growing attention I've dedicated to narrative universes that constitutes an ersatz, a substitute of the world. I do not want to be the critic or the reviewer of myself, but think about my novels. The issue in The Name of the Rose is a truth to uncover. Because Pendulum discusses how to construct a non-existent word. The Island of the Day Before examines a word that exists, but the contours of which are still unclear. My work in semiotics, in the end, concerns the problem of how our signs give account of that which is, or construct that which is not. A interest in avant-garde phenomena springs from the interest for a language that tends to break down and recreate our world. It's the thing that digital language do very well. The years I spent analyzing mass media likewise concern the problem of truth. So, if you read it carefully, Eco seems to suggest that cognitive semiotic is not a kind of semiotics, but the vocation of semiotic itself, or at least the vocation of the kind of semiotic that you used to practice. So if the word cognitive refers to the question of how we come to know the world, it is only through signs, meanings, tests, artifacts, and languages that are we able to know the world. So, right? So semiotics is a discipline that studies these mediators. Together with Andrea Pianotti, we have a project on this idea of mediators that make possible our access to reality in some way. I still think Massimo already told us just now that this is the case, and this is important to do it, as Massimo showed it very well in his talk. However, these are sometimes turned inside our discipline into a plain constructivism that Massimo Leone recently called symbolicism, and that thinks that reality is socially constructed and facts are built up. In Italian, it works fine, it sounds better. I fatti sono fatti, and it means that are produced in some way. You all know this kind of things. I think this needs a deeper analysis, especially if we want to tackle this kind of topics that we want to work on during this day. So in my view, semiotics, I would say cognitive semiotics, assumes that cognition is the result of the interactive relations that occur between an organism and the environment in which it is situated. That's from an activist, for instance. However, this environment is not a natural environment, but it's a semiotic environment crowded with objects, norms, habits, institutions, digital artifacts that shape our minds in some way. But this does not mean that it is neither cultural nor social. Why? Because starting from the inside, an activist claiming that humans are fundamentally coupled with their ecological niche, I think that semiotics has to understand the interaction between material environment and cognitive capacities as occurring in a manner of circular dynamical causation and co-constitution. This is why I argue for a methodological shift in the semiotic studies of material and digital artifacts, but digital artifacts are material, of course, rather than asking about the role of the artifacts in the society or how the artifact might have been used or the meaning that they could have inside a given culture. In my opinion, we should ask about the ways by which the artifact might have scaffolded human cognition or expanding and enhance the possibility of cognitive tasks. This is why, according and following what Maria Giulia Dondero has already done in the languages of images, I argue for a material term in semiotics or cognitive semiotics. So text, languages, and semiotic systems scaffold the way humans come to know the world and represent the background of our perception of the environment. And faces are a very good example about this. This is an Italian discovery, which is, I think, one of the best example of groundbreaking science. You know that typical newborns of several vertebrate species, including humans, come into the world equipped with inborn predisposition to preferentially attend to relevant social cues, such as faces, direct eye gaze, and biological motion patterns. However, newborns do not manifest at birth any visual preference for a human face if compared to a scrambled face with more elements in the upper part. And they prefer the crowded upper part. These experiments have shown that these two images to newborns after 5 minutes and after 3 months. Their preference changed between a general preference for an image with more elements in the upper part, so the second pictures, to faces. So it changed in the first 3 months of life. So this general preference for some structural and neurological properties that faces share with other visual stimuli changes over development and becomes tuned to human faces due to the extensive and repeated experience with this kind of element provided by the environment within the very first month of life. Since they experience the contact with human faces, they change a little bit their preference. This results in the development of expertise, the idea that we are generally better at discriminating between stimuli we have already experienced. We share this perceptual narrowing phenomena also with primates. So I would say that cognitive specialization is an activity-dependent and an experience-dependent process. So brains take the shapes of our experience in some way. And this fact is strictly linked to the exposure to certain experience occurring over a particular period of time that is called critical period or sensitive period. For instance, the enfants sauvages, they can speak, but if they don't do the experience of acquiring language during a critical window, they will never acquire language. But this has nothing to do neither with the idea that we see what our culture leads us to see, that is a common topic in semiotics, nor with the idea that reality, even perceptual reality, is socially constructed. This intertwining between cognition and the environment in which material culture scaffolds cognition and perception is what I claim to be a material journey in semiotics. We will discover in the future what our digital environments and the interaction with tablets and mounted displays are doing to our perception and to our cognition. But in order to understand better this intertwining between cognition and material culture, and the reason why, in my opinion, reality is not socially constructed, this is a wrong way of putting things. I want to just let me work a bit on the idea of truth. I remember Barteco used to tell us that semiotics has something to do with the idea of truth. That we lead thus, you would say, quite naturally, I think, to digital images. There is a fine book by Richard Firth Green. I don't know if you know it, but it's a great book. Green has shown how the very word truth changed meaning at the end of the 14th century. While truth previously meant something like integrity or reliability, the word trust comes from truth. You trust something means it's really able in some way or countable. But it was only at the end of the 14th century that it began to take on its present meaning of conformity to facts. In the crisis of truth, Green maintains that these changes and alterations in meaning were closely connected with growing emphasis on the written word. It means it's a matter of material culture. And the written word used to generate documents rather than the spoken word that used to generate promises. So, at the same time, this changing and alteration related to the simultaneous reshaping of thought connected to legal practices that took place in those years. So, according to Green, the very rapid increase in the quantity of documents created by a bureaucratic, centralized, and authoritarian state, like that of Richard II in the England of the time, contributed to bringing about the fundamental change in the attitude that, still nowadays, we have to need an item of evidence or proof, which has moved from an idea of truth that resides almost entirely in some way inside the individual, in persons, to an idea of truth that resides and rests on documents. And it's through documents through which certain facts speaks. So facts speaks through documents, or reality speaks through that. It wasn't like that. So a second turning point to me, which was in this conception of truth, is to be found in the scientific revolution. Everybody should read this book, which is gorgeous. And maybe you know the Boyle versus Hobbes debate, which influenced a lot Bruno Latour's works. In the first case, the transition from morality to writing, it is a real technological revolution like the digital revolution. So it was a kind of material culture that changed the way we conceptualize truth. So in the first case, the meaning of truth was made an idea, turned from an idea of integrity and reliability to this idea of conformity to facts mediated by documents. Now truth moves from conformity to facts through documents, through the production of reality through machines. This is the main point. The reality is product through machines. While before people produce documents, now reality is produced. It's really produced, but reality is not produced by us, nor by one of our particular subgroups called scientists. It is machines that produce reality. Truth, the scientific truth, is not based on the production of documents by means of men's days, writing, but on the production of what is real by means of machines. In order to understand the digital world we live in nowadays, Chapin and Schaffer's extraordinary book on the debate between Boyle and Hobbes is a must read. Something momentous happened with Boyle that is fundamental for grasping present-day reality. In fact, to put order in the debate between fullists and emptists that followed Torricelli's discovery, those were the years in which the ether used to be believed. And in order to do so, Boyle did not say a word. He did not even write a scientific treatise. What he was doing was producing a machine that enclosed a Torricelli cube in the inverted glass casing of a pump and made a vacuum with a crack. Later, he suffocated small animals and snuffed out lots of candles inside this machine. Then, with this pump, it was a machine, he went to the king. You remember, the king was the one who used to produce documents. With the king, Boyle found Hobbes, that was a supporter of the ether, and one who had already sent the king a whole range of admonition in the form of letters and other documents. Hobbes was a producer of documents, while Boyle was a producer of machines, which is huge difference. What Hobbes did not like about Boyle was his appeal to the doxa, to get the support of his peers. Boyle did not rely on logic, he did not rely on mathematics or rhetoric, but on the concept that anyone could use his machine, and whoever used it would produce reality, the very same reality as that produced by nature. A kind of Spinoza's Ordet connexio rerum idem est ac ordet connexio idearum is at work behind Boyle's pump. On the contrary, Hobbes, who believed in the ether, which was contradicted by Boyle's machine that produces vacuum, said that we cannot delegate the production of the accepted version of reality to the people, because people must delegate their power to the king and to the institution. And when the king speaks and produces documents, it will be the people that speaks and produces them. But Boyle replied that his machine produced the vacuum, produced a reality without passing through any document, any expertise, or through any other delegation. The only mediation needed is machinic. Take whoever you want from among the people, give him Boyle's machine, and he will produce the vacuum. And Boyle had a technician with a crank that produces the vacuum using a kitchen feather as a sensor. So imagine this guy in front of the king with this kitchen feather as a sensor that used to produce the vacuum, while Hobbes used to say, yeah, you cannot do that. Through Boyle's pump, we assist by means of a mediation through the machine to the splitting between science and politics, between science and humanities in some way. Latour used to say that. And which is this kind of split? That science produces reality, and therefore knowledge by means of the machinic production of reality. While politics and humanities produces documents, and therefore knowledge by means of the delegation to experts, to their narration and their meanings. So in my view, the only acceptable sense of Bachelard's by now famous slogan that i fatti sono fatti, that are produced, meaning that they are constructed, is that facts are produced through machines. Machines are made from machines, like many others. When, on the other hand, we say that facts are constructed socially, that the reality is socially constructed, we are exporting a principle of science to other cultural domains that work in a very different way. It is now almost a commonplace in the humanities to claim that facts are socially constructed, that this must not be taken for granted at all, since it looks like an exportation of a principle born to say the opposite. Science produces knowledge through the production of reality, which is machine, while humanities and politics produce reality through the production of text and documents. Science reaches knowledge moving from the production of reality, while politics, this is Turin, quotation and information, produce knowledge moving from the production of text and documents. So science uses machinic perception, laboratories and environments, while politics, media, and information use social issues. People in the world of information of culture will say that facts are built through media in order to explain knowledge in the world of information and communication, are using the science model, which is a mistake in my opinion, because scientific knowledge comes through the production of reality by means of machines, and not by means of text and documents, meanings, narration, and points of view. In my opinion, this mistake has become very clear during the last during the last 25 years. For the first time, in this quantitative nature at least, even a document is pushed through with the mediation of a machine. Now we have machines that generate documents. And this is the first time in our history. Okay? Not only, for instance, in the phase where the whole text is produced through machine, but also in our present-day situation, where even when documents are produced by human beings, the machine produces new documents starting from these very same documents, metadata, that afterwards in some way direct human beings to produce and read other documents according to the machinic production of metadata. So the phenomenon of echo chambers, bubbles, algocracy are a heterogeneous name for another kind of phenomenon, in my opinion, which is the new machinic production of documents. Which is the real news in our world in some way. You can have many consequences on this. For instance, instead of speaking of post-truth, you should speak about pre-truth, because you have truth beforehand, because it resides in you and in that multiplicity of intermediaries of a machine that gives you access to documents that are maybe inaccessible to human people alone. And usually what you want is to be right. that you want that the others confirm what you already know. And they trust you in some way. So there is a kind of coming back to this idea of truth as trust, to a medieval idea, because you have truth before. But this has nothing to do, as it has often been claimed, with the form of the confirmation bias amplified by the web and its bubbles. This is to do with return to a medieval dimension of the truth, which precedes its being seen as something that corresponds to the fact. So it's pre-truth in the sense of return to its pre-modern dimension. Right? And this idea is caused by material culture. That means by a new intertwining between cognition and material culture. For the first time, sees documents and images produced by the machines. I would say that while during Boy's revolution, machines used to produce truth, now machines are able to produce fakes, and of course, also many other truths. This is why material theory semiotics is so important in my view. It leads us to see the way material culture scaffolds our cognition and shape our minds. Digital images and big data are a crucial part of the way this is done nowadays. And I'm sure that during these 3 days, we will see many, many examples of that. So thank you very much.
I don't know if a discussion is not
allowed.
So we can go to the next speaker.